Got the wheel fixed, but not the fender. Not the fender. Okay, I got a like a super tall, but it's too tall for the fender. So I'm stuck. No, I need to ride back. So, well, hopefully next week I'll have it.
Brethren, thank you for being here. So Isaac Purvis is being ordained as an elder today. So I think they're taking care of that now in the bishop's office. So he may join us. He may be going to the young single adult ward. So obviously, if we can do everything we can to convince him to stay here, that'd be great. Selfishly for us, right?
Yeah.
It might be better for him to go the YSA ward, but selfishly for us, we prefer it if he stayed here.
You'll learn either way.
I'll have to twist his arm a little bit. Brother Kester was just telling me that he's followed up a few times with Brother Eddie Love. The reason that Eddie Love was in the hospital for a couple of months a little while ago is he had a stroke. So he's at home. He's been home for a while now, and he has some in-home care to take care of him, but just having some issues. So thoughts and prayers. If you call him or text him, maybe pop in every once in a while. I'm sure he's feeling a little bit more alone than usual. So just to kind of keep thinking about Brother Love and pop in for him.
One more thing. You also asked to see if anybody can help get him some physical therapy. Answer that as well.
I can talk to the Relief Society and Bishop and see what the resources are.
It may not be much
Yeah.
to do, but at least put them in the right direction.
Yeah, I know that Sister Lloyd had some community resources with that kind of stuff that she can, we can kind of outsource that too. So,
Excellent.
like I was saying, that I'd get to attend state conference last week. We were visiting my dad, so we went to my dad's ward. It's kind of interesting going back to the ward he grew up in. I've been back they're just in South Sacramento, so I've been back a couple of times over the last few years, but it's probably been 10 years since I visited my parents' ward, and it's a lot different. It's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller. Like their sacrament meeting attendance was probably, I don't know, maybe half of what ours was today. And so it was interesting just kind of, saw some, a lot of people have moved or passed on, but saw some familiar faces last week. So it was kind of fun going to church. I haven't gone to church with my sisters in a really long time. So it was kind of fun, just kind of surprise my dad. So going to church with family, it can be interesting. So are there any other items of business or anything anybody wants to bring up before we get started today?
Are they cleaning every weekend?
Yes. Please remember that, so Brother Rincon is coordinating our building cleaning on Saturday mornings. Because we haven't made assignments, sometimes it's pretty limited, and we don't want Brother Rincon here by himself on Saturday mornings. So just if you're available, dedicate an hour, just get in, get out. But every Saturday morning at 8:30, if you're available, please pop in for that, Brother Pinniger.
Could we do this different?
We could do a lot of things. What do you want, Brother Pinniger?
Well, if everybody is given an invitation to show up every week, it just doesn't seem like, for me, it would be better if I said, okay, I'm going to try and be there the third Saturday of each month. And if we went around and, each of us said, I'll try and be there the second, third, fourth, it might be a little more evenly balanced, and we might have a little more sense of ownership about it.
What we can do is, I know in past stakes I've been in, they would do an 8-week rotation, but it was for a bigger group. For our group, probably a 4-week rotation of this is your Saturday. And if you can't get here on your Saturday, you don't have to feel guilty about it, but pop in on another Saturday when you are available. And Brother Rincon and I can probably sit down and kind of hammer out a list and maybe just make some assignments. And if that week doesn't work for you, you can switch it. But probably knowing, like you said, Brother Pinniger, that this is your week to show up. And it doesn't take, in an hour, if you get 8 to 10 people, you can get a lot done in an hour. It's just if you have 2 or 3 people, you kind of just get the bathrooms and the chapel done, and that's kind of all that gets done. And so we want to make sure that that we're making that. We want the building to look good for Sunday morning so that people feel good when they get here. Chuck.
Well, I was a clean coordinator some time ago. The most successful thing that worked was department by department. Okay, 1 week's the eldest quorum, next week's young men and ladies. That was by far the most successful.
And we could do something like that too. I know the wards I've been in, things that get divided up not intentionally, but what happens is when the missionary calendar gets passed around for dinners, the guys always go, well, I got to check with my wife, and then the women sign that. And then for building cleaning, the women send their husbands and kids off, and a lot of them don't come. And that's just kind of what happens. But I brought my kid when Miguel was gone a couple weeks ago, and so I brought my two oldest kids here, and we had a few people show up that day. Brother Landeros is here, and we had a couple of people show up, and it was good. We got a lot done in an hour, and then you can move on with your Saturday. So anyway, so yeah, we'll talk and maybe make some assignments, and that way you know at least once a month you're popping into the building for an hour. Brother Vinegar.
I'll sign up for the third Saturday of each month.
Nice, Brother Vinegar. Nice. So that would be next Saturday, this coming Saturday. Yeah, there you go. All right. Okay, so we're going to do something a little bit different. So normally what the Elders Quorum curriculum is we review talks from the most recent general conference. We're going to do something a little bit different, and I hope that you're all game for this. So the lesson in Come Follow Me this week is the start of the Psalms. So we're going to go over what the Come Follow Me lesson was, but more than that, we're going to talk about, are we doing Come Follow Me in our homes? I was going to grab the TV and I didn't, and I didn't even see it there. So I'm going to try to play a video real quick. So a couple of years ago, I believe it was April 2018, and I think it was a priesthood session, we were told that the structure of Elders Quorum and High Priest group were changing. And we were told that around the same time that we were going from 3 hours of church to 2 hours. And I think we all remember why, but does somebody just want to volunteer? Why was that change made? Brother Brown.
Well, it was brought up that we're going to be switching more to having more church activities at home, learning opportunities at home, teaching at home. And so Come Follow Me program is born out of that.
Exactly. Chuck.
Actually, what I got out of this is learning came from home supported by the church.
You know, so home-centered church supported, I think, is the term that the brethren were using, and that's always the way it is supposed to have been. But I know for a lot of families it wasn't. For a lot of families, it was all right. What I'm going to send my kids to primary and young men and young women's on Sunday, and maybe after church on Sunday, I'll ask them what they learned and say, "Attaboy, good job," and then I'll send you to mutual on Tuesday. "Attaboy, good job," and then we kind of rotate that, right? Kind of repeat that cycle. So a lot of parents maybe were not taking the lead on helping their kids. You okay, Ada? All right. I think she forgot what week it was. So with the Come Follow Me program, it's church, it's home centered. And so what the idea is that in our homes, with our kids, grandkids, with our spouse, with our roommates, whoever, we are studying the scriptures the whole week. And then when Sunday comes, it's like the Super Bowl, right? It's the culmination of all the stuff that we've been studying on our own during the week so that we're prepared for Sundays. My family really had a hard time. It was kind of weird. It was hard for us to kind of get started. We would study the scriptures at home, but it wasn't consistent, right? And so when we started doing Come Follow Me, it was a little tough to get my kids to pay attention. And sometimes you can kind of feel silly, right, as a parent or in your home. Come on, have a seat. We can kind of feel silly in our home, like doing a lesson with our family. Maybe it's just us and our spouse. and kind of feel weird. And so I love the Come Follow Me book because if you don't know how to ask questions, they give you this. This is my favorite part of Come Follow Me. They give you questions to ask, right? I don't have to figure out how do I ask a question. Follow Me gives you those suggestions. So that's what we're going to talk about today, about how Come Follow Me is working in our homes. Is it? Are we doing it? What are challenges that we're having? What are obstacles that we have? Or if it's working well for you, what are you doing in your home to make it work? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start by kind of digging in. So if you have your devices, like I said, I was going to hook up the TV. I didn't. So I had to borrow my wife's iPad or her tablet, which is funny because it's never charged. So I had to charge it for a couple hours. My home is to make sure that my wife's devices are always charged because she runs her phone on 1% all day, every day. I don't know how she communicates with the world because it's always on. It's the longest lasting battery ever. It's always on 1%. So this her tablet that she bought to study for a course that she was taking, and she finished one part, so she's taking a break before the next part. Anyway, so this tablet's always dead. So this week in Come Follow Me, this past week, it's the Psalms. So if anybody knows anything, or if you've done your studying this week, or what have you learned about the Psalms this week?
God.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Psalms are manifested in the hymns that we have.
They are. Who else? Something that you've learned this week, or that you love about the Psalms? Historically accurate. A lot of them were written by other people because they teach really good, pure doctrine. One of the questions that I thought of this week was how can you use the Psalms to share the gospel? And I'll share what I was thinking because the Psalms are so popular in popular culture. There's a a really famous rap song from the 90s that uses part of Psalm 23. And there's the Psalms are, all Christian denominations a lot of times will use the Psalms when churches or bookstores, they'll sell the little versions of the New Testament. A lot of times the Psalms are included. It's the Psalms in the New Testament, or the Psalms and Proverbs and the New Testament. So, if you scroll on Facebook or Instagram, people use the Psalms a lot to kind of soothe their souls. And so I was thinking about that of just as we should always be thinking of ways to share the gospel. The Psalms are a really good way to share really pure, good doctrine. It talks about healing and it talks about heartbreak, things that are basic to all of us, right? All humans, right? We experience these things, and that's why the Psalms are so powerful, because they're teaching pure doctrine in human emotion. And that's how you connect with people, right? It's teaching the doctrine of Christ, that Christ is your Savior, but through experience, through shared experiences. And so in the Psalms, especially those that are thought to be written by King David, the heartbreak, right? These are written after King David's fall. And so a lot of the theme of those Psalms are God is great, I'm nothing, I need mercy, right? I need God to save me. That's a universal theme that we can all relate to, right? God is great, I'm nothing, I need mercy, please help me. But it's written in a very poetic way where a lot of people can relate to that. So I was thinking this week of if I had really prepared, that's a Facebook post I could share, or an Instagram post of, I read in the Psalms this week, share one verse and say, this is what it means to me. Anybody could relate to that, right? So that's just one thought I had this week as I was thinking about this is, How do we use the scriptures, but really specifically the Psalms? How can we use that to share the gospel with people? Chuck, you had something.
Well, I recently had, been doing some missionary work outside, with a friend. And Psalm 73 became very important, was used at that time.
Very good. And I think, like I said, those things where people don't want to be preached at, but if you can share something that means something to them, and it's something a lot of kids are dragged to church as kids, right? And they stop going as adults. A lot of kids who've gone to a lot of different churches have listened to the Psalms, right? Now they listen to a lot of scriptures, but specifically the Psalms have a way of kind of permeating, like I said, popular culture and stuff. And so it's just an example of things that we can use. If you're not sure how to share the gospel, or you're saying, I don't know how to share my testimony online, or how to share, there's little things that you can do to say, hey, this is something that everyone can relate to. And we talked about it in my church class on Sunday. Here's this verse from Psalm 23. This is what I thought about, whatever the case may be. So those are different ideas. So we're going to look at a couple. I'm going to try to play a video. I can't. I don't have the TV, but I'm going to play the audio loud. Hopefully, it works. I downloaded it beforehand, so no, it's okay. It's okay. But this is from 2018. So this is part of Elder Cook's talk when he was talking about home-centered, church-supported, and about the Come Follow Me program. So we're going to see if this works. If I can turn it loud.
The new home-centered and church-supported curriculum needs to be individual and family to determine perfectly when it will be implemented. For example, it would be completely appropriate for young single adults, single parents, part-member families, new members, and others to gather in groups outside the normal Sunday worship services to enjoy gospel sociality and be strengthened by studying together the home-centered, church-supported resource. This would be accomplished informally by those who so desire. The goal of these adjustments is to obtain a deep and lasting conversion of adults and the rising generation. The first page of the individual and family resource points out the aim of all gospel learning and teaching is individual's heart and home. It requires consistent daily efforts to understand and live the gospel. True conversion requires the influence of the Holy Ghost.
So that was Elder Cook in general conference explaining what we talked about before of the reason for the change in the schedule of church and the idea behind the Come Follow Me program of it's not about us coming on, we on Sundays, now we get 45 minutes every 2 weeks as an elders quorum, right? That is not going to sustain you or I as elders in the church. That is not going to sustain you or I in our testimony of the gospel. What we talk about here for 45 minutes can't keep, it can help us. It can keep that fire alive, but it's not going to sustain your testimony for 2 weeks. And so it's what we do at home that's going to determine where our testimonies are. So not to put anybody on the spot, but for those of you who have been studying along with Come Follow Me, what has been working for you? How have you been doing it? Chuck?
I've been doing it on the YouTube videos on the Come Follow Me. They come out every week, and that's like several people doing it.
They're not sanctioned by, they're not associated with the church, but it's all people who are following along with Come Follow Me. There's about 2 or 3 that I listen to on a kind of a rotating basis. They do like an hour a week, and they'll talk about, this is the Come Follow Me lesson. These are the, and they'll kind of go through it like a Sunday school class. Who else? Brother Pinniger.
So our house have a very short commute. And Lisa sometimes has to work 12-hour days, and she has to be at work at 7, so she'll leave home at 6. One of the interesting things with having cell phones is as she's driving to Davis, I will read to her the primary, come follow me, or the individual and family, come follow me. And, you know, that about fits that amount of time of her commute. And it's good. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of time sometimes to prepare for primary. And so reading that primary lesson, and I learned as much from the primary lesson as I do from the other one. I mean, it's, you know, how are you going to take these concepts that are up here and get them to left? Well, I understand them when they're down here a little easier than, anyway, but just one other thought, and that is, you know, at different times in our lives, either as a husband or wife, one or the other, you probably is more spiritually ahead or behind, and so sometimes I think our wives drag us along, and sometimes we help to facilitate things for our wives and their spiritual growth. And I learn a lot from sharing what I'm learning and processing what I'm learning as I'm in the scriptures. But
Oh, it does. I think I had my oldest sister. She's an aeronautical engineer, and so she had a professor at Stanford who told her, if the idea that you're studying, if you can't explain it at a bar in 3 minutes or less, you don't get it, right? So you have to be able to explain that, right? And I think that's the thing. If you can't so being able to share with people, that's why teaching or facilitating a lesson is such a good thing, or giving a talk in sacrament meeting, right? Even though some of us are terrified of that, it's, what am I studying? Can I express it? Have I really processed it? And these are my thoughts on it, right? And so that sharing in a family environment, or like I said, with roommates or with friends, right? Elder Cook was saying, if you're single, if there's a single adult group in the ward or the stake, talk about studying, come follow me, right? If you have family members who, maybe aren't members of the church, hey, I'm studying the Psalms this week. Here's 2 minutes on something I learned, right? Being able to process that. And as you share those things, that's when your testimony comes through. Like, I really felt this, or I learned this about Jesus.
So being a grandparent and seeing kids, sometimes you empathize with their struggles. Last week, Lisa and I were up in Idaho, and we were visiting her daughter Stephanie and her family. Okay, so Sam is a brand new police officer in Rexburg. It's terrible shifts, it's terrible hours. Going to work at 2 in the afternoon, coming home at 2 in the morning. Stephanie's at home with 2 little ones, a 3-year-old and a newborn. And she's not getting enough sleep. He's not getting enough sleep. And she went to church and for a baby blessing, and had all kinds of problems. And she says to her mom, I don't know why I'm in the church, right? And so it's tough. Sometimes we have a dynamics that's just pretty tough.
And that, I think a lot of young families will go through that. There are times when, Ivy's 2.5. And so, there's big chunks of sacrament meetings where I don't really hear what's going on. Today there was a cup of water and so we had to fix that. And then she got into these little Fruit Loops that we brought for her. And then we brought a little bag of crayons, and she's, instead of playing, throw little pieces of plastic. Why are we at church today? Which I have an answer for that. I have an aunt who went through that. So she had 5 kids. Her 2 little kids had autism and some learning disabilities. and there was some real anger and aggression issues that they went through when they were, like ages 5 to like 15. And she said to me one time, sometimes you just go to church and hang out in the hallways so that the devil knows that you're still going to church, and I said, okay, like that's, if I don't get anything out of it, I'm going to go to church just to tell the devil that I'm still going to church, right? So there are days like that. And so with that thought in mind of, I can't pack all the spiritual learning that I need in a 1 hour or 2 hour block, the Come Follow Me program becomes that much more important, right? Of studying a little bit at a time. So what we did, our family, what we started to do was, so it's designed for like basically the Monday through Sunday. But what we would do is we would start it on like Tuesday. On Tuesday, we would do like 10 minutes. So like Tuesdays after dinner, we would read maybe like the first half page and say, okay, and my kids are old enough. You guys have 2 days. We're going to check in again on Thursday. You guys have 2 days to read this chapter. We're going to check in. What did you guys learn? Now, those check-ins a lot of times would be in the car driving somewhere, right? My kids are going to zone out if I sit them down 3 or 4 times a week with my book out to be like, hey, what are you learning, right? So we would do, hey, if we're driving for something for school, it's a 10-minute drive. Okay, hey, did you guys follow up on did you guys read the same Psalms this week? Most of the time it's no, right? That's just, most of the time it's no, I didn't read. Okay, then I'll play the audio on my phone in the car. This is the chapter we were supposed to read. We have 2 more minutes. Let's talk about it, right? Sometimes you get something out of it. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes your kids aren't listening. That's okay, right? So we're gonna kind of do an example. So in the app, like Brother Pinniger was saying, there's actually 3 different versions of Come Follow Me. The one that we reference the most is the one for individuals and families. There's a primary one and there's a Sunday school one. The primary one we actually use a lot in our house, again, because it dumbs it down. It doesn't dumb it down, but it makes it more simple and it focuses on just a couple of things. And what I love is that it will give activities, right? Even my teenagers, they need activities to apply the learning, right? Sometimes the activities, I'll be honest, they're a little cheesy, right? It's like, whatever. And you're like, these are like, they're new. It's new, but you're kind of like this old idea of like, we're going to cut out these little things, right? But some of them are actually pretty cool. I'll use online resources a lot. I'll say, okay, I'll just use Google. What's an object lesson for Psalms 23? People put all kinds of stuff for free online, right? There are Come Follow Me YouTube podcasts. The one of them that I listen to, he's a seminary teacher, and in every one that he does, it's always, this is an activity I've done with my seminary students. Again, sometimes it's a little boring, and I don't really like. I have to be interested too. So if it's kind of boring, I'll just kind of skip it. But a lot of the ones that I've done for my kids are ones that I found online, right? So we're going to. I actually, if you go in, thanks, Garrett, for that. I took a picture of it, but this is in the primary version of this week's lesson, right? So it says, I'm going to do exactly what this is something that you can do in 5 minutes with your kids or with your grandkids at home, right? So it says right on the board, the Lord, always excuse my handwriting, I know. The Lord is blank. And we're going to look at now. I want you guys to open your scriptures. You're going to look at some specific scriptures. We're going to look at Psalms 23:1, Psalms 27:1, Psalms, all the first verses, it looks like. Psalms 28:1. I love Psalms because there's a silent P. Words that have silent letters at the beginning are fun. Psalms 28:7. And then 32:7. All right. Does somebody have 23:1? Whoever has it, just go ahead and read it.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
All right. The Lord is what?
My shepherd.
Right. Shepherd. 27:1. Who has that?
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
My light, my salvation. What was the other one, Brother Brown?
Strength of my life, and Lord is the strength of my life, and of whom shall I be afraid?
Strength of my.
Also, whom shall I fear after salvation?
28:1. Who has that?
Rock.
My rock. I feel like I should capitalize it because we're kind of tired. 28:7.
The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusted in him, and I am helped. Therefore, my heart greatly rejoices, and with my song will I praise him.
And then the last one, 32:7.
Thou art my hiding place, thou shalt preserve me from trouble, thou shalt compass me about with songs of deliverance. So my hiding place.
Oh, good.
What's that last word?
Shield, strength of my shield. I know. My hiding place. Okay, so that was 3 or 4 minutes, right? So this is something you could do with your kids on a white piece of paper. Make them search all these scriptures. This is what the people that are writing the Psalms, maybe David, maybe someone else. This is what they think about the Lord, right? So let's take a minute to discuss. What's something that out of this list that sticks out to you and can apply to you, or something that you've thought of in this list?
Well, one, our salvation. If we look all the way back to our lives, look how much stuff he's already seen us through.
There's a talk probably 10 years ago by Elder Uchtdorf, and he talked about you can only see where you've come. You have to stand, if your life is like this, it's up and down, these hills and valleys. You have to be at this place to look back to see where you've come from, right? But there's only you have to get through a certain amount of stuff, and then you can look back and go, oh, it didn't feel like it, but God was really taking care of me. Look where I've come from. Sometimes we get down in the moment. Sometimes we're in one of these moments down here, and nothing's going right. Our kids don't listen. We lost our job. Our house stinks. There's all these things going on in our lives, right? But sometimes you got to go, yeah, but I used to be way back here. Remember when I was way back here? Stuff isn't 100% perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. I'm a lot better than I was, right? Or maybe we go, maybe I'm not as good as I used to be, right? Maybe we take that self-evaluation of, a lot of people will look back on their missions and go, well, that was my pinnacle, right? I was the best person I ever was as a missionary.
Yep.
If that's where you're at, that's a problem, right? The mission should be a springboard to the future, right? If you, in the last 5 years, don't have any kind of spiritual experiences that you can look back on as really profound or to put in your foundation, then that's something. I was in a ward one time where the brother that was teaching us, he was doing a Sunday school, and we had it split up into 2 Sunday school classes. This is a gentleman. He never smiled, right? That just wasn't in his nature. But he was teaching Sunday school, and you're kind of like, okay, I have to go. I'm assigned to go. We did it by alphabet, A to M, and then N to Z. So I was in that last part of class. So I went to this brother's Sunday school class. It was rough. This guy didn't like him. I'm gonna judge for just a minute because this was my experience with this guy. I don't think he liked his wife. I don't think he liked his kids, right? The only time he ever smiled was talking about his mission service 30 years prior. And so every Sunday school lesson, that was when he would smile, when he would talk about the mission, and he talked about like these things that happened in the gospel. And I was like, man, you have like 5 kids, you've been married like 25 years, and the happiest thing you could talk about is something that happened like 30 years ago. I don't want to be in that position, right? I'm not going to judge him. Maybe I had a totally, right? We're not supposed to judge. Maybe I have a bad perspective. But that was my perspective with this brother, right? And so, sorry, that was a long diatribe. But back to Chuck's point of what the Lord can do for us, right? Sometimes we're in these valleys. He's the one that pulls us out, Chuck.
Well, I have one thing. The biggest springboard I had was when I converted and baptized.
There you go. See? And you should use that as a memory, right?
Yes.
If you use those that have watched a lot of Disney, we watch a lot of Disney in our house, Inside Out, they talk about core memories, right? These core emotions, these core memories, right? Mission, baptism, those should be in our core memories, but then you use those, right, to move forward and go, this is why I got baptized. This is why I served our mission. This is why I did those things. But now these are the things that I'm doing, right? And these are a great opportunity to have those discussions in your home, right? I talk with my kids a lot about different things. When they were younger, they were really interested in the mission, my mission. And so I would share with them. They're older now. They don't really care anymore. They're kind of tired of those stories. But every once in a while they go like, oh, like, they'll ask me questions about the mission. And so that's when I share. And I share really important experiences that I had that helped me be a better husband and father. And I always try to apply, like, I learned this lesson in the mission. This is how I apply it with you guys right now, right? They don't always love that, but that's what I do. So again, this is a really simple way to share the gospel with your family as you're doing Come Follow Me. So I'm going to read something. This is it's just out of the book. Most people are I use it on my phone all the time. We also have a printed copy. So I'm just going to read it from the printed copy. This is just an idea of if you didn't know how to do Come Follow Me, if you didn't know how to study the scriptures with your family, like I said, it's really easy just to read it. So it's under where it says Psalms 8. It says, reading Psalms 8, 19, and 33 may inspire you to consider the Lord's many wonderful creations. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings as you do. How do the Lord's creations, quote, declare the glory of God to you? Right? So that's something simple where you could, if you read those Psalms, it talks about the glory of creation and the beauty of the earth. And then you can say, hey, when we go camping and you see a beautiful sunrise or a beautiful sunset, what does it make you feel? What do you think about? Oh, and as your kids express that, then you can say, that's what they're talking about in the Psalms. That's what this is about, right? So again, it's taking that. You don't have to come up with a lesson with Come Follow Me. It does it for you. And so that's a lot of times what we do is just, we read it and we'll do section by section. Our family usually goes 20 minutes. Even with older kids who you think, they can pay attention for 8 hours in a day at school, we cannot get more than 20 minutes of scripture study at a time, right? That's our limit. And so that's kind of what we go to. Every once in a while, if it's something that they're really interested in, or if they have questions, we might go an hour. That is super rare, right? Most of the time we're struggling to get 20 minutes in. But with little kids, even with big kids, even with adults, use object lessons, right? Google it. Hey, what's a cool object lesson for teaching about the light of the world, right? My kids didn't know, when we started with the New Testament, it's talked about don't put your light under a bushel, don't put your candle under a bushel. They didn't know what a bushel was, right? So, right. This is what Google says a bushel is. Basically, it's don't put your light under a bowl. And so I took a candle and I put a bowl over it. They now know what a bushel is, right? 4 years later, they're like, yeah, that's what that means, right? They remember that. One of the activities we did in the Book of Mormon, when the anti-Nephi Lehis bury their weapons of war, right? And it talks about that they don't want to commit murder again. They don't want to sin anymore. And so they take their swords and they bury them deep in the earth so they can't get them, right? Well, I wasn't gonna go out and dig. It was like the middle of summer. I was like, I don't feel like digging anything. And I don't like manual labor anyway. So what we did was, one of the other things I saw online was, you're going to, you give your family pieces of paper to write down maybe something that they're ashamed of or something that they've done that they want to change. And then you light a fire in the barbecue and you burn those pieces of paper, right? Symbolically saying, I want to get, my kids remember playing with fire, right? Like that's a lesson they still remember. So it's looking for those ways of, how can I take this lesson, like Brother Pinner was saying, how can I take something that's this huge doctrinal thing that we could spend hours on, and what's a 15 to 20 minute lesson, right? Or if you have little kids, what's 5 minutes, right? In nursery, you ever watch a lesson in nursery? A nursery lesson is 1 minute, and then they have snacks. Okay, that's a beautiful thing, right?
Perfect. That's perfect for me.
That's perfect, right? They give them a coloring page and they say, like I was in there a couple months ago, they talked about the first division. And I think it was Sister Horner, Sister Gallo, they said, this is the first division, this is what it is. Kids, here's a coloring page, here's a snack, right? It's little by little, right? Those of us that are maybe a little more older, a little more mature in the gospel, we should probably be doing more than that, right? But sometimes, on a Monday, and you're like, I'm not feeling it, sometimes all you can get is one verse in, right? So I'm going to read, let's say this paragraph. I'm going to read this paragraph today. Come follow me, because that's all I can do. Okay, right? Okay, that's fine. The point is how to make the scriptures work for your family. What did Christ say? That the Sabbath is for man, not man for the Sabbath, right? So the scriptures are not supposed to be this overburdensome thing. They're a tool that we use, right? Learning how to load a dishwasher as a kid can be really difficult. Once you learn how to load a dishwasher, you realize that, I'm spending a lot less time doing chores because I can do that. A washer and dryer, right? My wife will get really antsy with me because she'll say, I want to have some us time. I need to talk to you. I want the kids to go away. And I'll say, let me start the wash real quick because it takes an hour. While we're talking, the wash can also be going, right? She doesn't like that because she thinks I'm putting something up. But I'm like, no, like this, I'm working smarter, not harder, right? I'm saying while we're talking, the machines can be doing the work, right? So it's making our lives work for us.
I was gonna say, well, you kind of have to relearn how to do the dishes and laundry when you're married.
That's true.
Just saying.
Just a random thought. My mom, when I was a kid, my mom had the same kind of dishwasher that her mom did at the same time, but they got into an argument because one of them was putting the forks face up and one of them was putting the forks face down, because they had different ideas of how the things spun. And apparently it was a real fight between my mom and my grandmother. Anyway, Brother Pinniger.
So I think the luckiest guys in here are the guys that have kids in primary. And, that we're all on the same lesson. I mean, your kids this week are learning something from Psalms, and so that we're learning from something from Psalms. And, reading those primary lessons, they always end with, what can you share with mom or dad or whoever, right? And so that's what they're coming out of there with. And so it's helpful as parents to ask. But sometimes those comments that our kids bring home are pretty insightful. What's the scripture say, out of the mouth of babes, that you learn those things. Anyway, it's just kind of interesting.
Well, I appreciate the fact that the church has put it has kind of rearranged everything so that, okay, normally during Elders Quorum, we are talking about recent conference talks, but at home, we should be studying the Come Follow Me that those kids are going to be talking about in primary, or young men and young women's. If you look at the youth one, the young men and young women one, it's a little different. It's the same set of scriptures, but it's usually one specific gospel topic that they'll kind of take out of there, which actually makes it really hard if you ever teach in young men and young women, because it's a very specific thing, but then here's all these conference talks and these other ways to talk about it. But it's always based in what you should be learning as a family, right? So if you're ever called to sub last minute in primary, or called to help on young men and young women's last minute, you should be okay, because if you're doing your Come Follow Me during the week, those scriptures will be in your mind. And like I said, It's a way, that Come Follow Me program is a way for us to study the scriptures as a family. And if it's just us, you are still a family, right? So if it's just you at home, this is a way for you to have a structure and to study the gospel. Here, did you have something? Okay, sorry. So we only have about 2 minutes. So my invitation is, brethren, if you are not using the Come Follow Me program, to start this week. That is my invitation, right? It's online. Everything is digital. If you go into the Gospel Library app and go and Come Follow Me, there's the individual and family one. Like Brother Pinniger was saying, there's the primary one. Read the primary one. It's like, and it gives you songs to sing if you need activities. For the primary one, it gives you activities to use. Like I said, I'll Google what are activities for Matthew 5, whatever we're studying that week. Use those activities if you're teaching. If you have your grandkids over, right? All right. What's one thing, right? What's one 30-second thing I can share? Because you don't want to be the over preachy grandparent or the parent, right? What's one really quick thing that I learned this week that I can share? Now, hey, do you remember the story of David? All right. Well, he wrote these cool things, right? They're called Psalms. They're like poetry. They're songs. This is my favorite one. That's a 1-minute lesson that anybody can do, right? So, brethren, that's my invitation. Sometimes it can be awkward to get started. That's okay. That's okay. Pull out the book, put it on your phone, be like, hey, this is one scripture. We're going to read one scripture tonight, right? Get on the same page with your spouse, right? Hey, I want to do this during the week sometime. Let's figure out what works for us. There is no one program, right? Maybe it's Sunday morning before you go to church. Maybe it's Sunday afternoon when you go home from church. Maybe it's on a Wednesday, right? We have 20 minutes on a Wednesday night. We're going to read some scriptures. Okay. Make it work for you. These are the tools that God has given us, right? That's why church is shorter. So we have more time with our families. So we have more time to minister to others and do what the Lord wants us to do. I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Brother Darwin, would you mind giving us a closing prayer?
Father in heaven, bow our heads before thee this day in gratitude for the opportunity we have to study that gospel. We're thankful to thee for the guidance and direction that thou hast given us, for the light knowledge that is our blessing. We pray that thou would help us to do those things that are pleasing unto thee in this coming week. We're grateful to thee for all thy blessings, and especially for thy Son. Say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Did you see the word Salah over and over and over and over? Yeah. And did you look it up? There's no definition for it. It says stop.
Find out.
Stop.
You're one of my